In the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. Lord Jesus, we thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity to continue in the mission, continue in what you've called us to. We ask that you would bless our time here, that whatever it is you have to be communicated would be communicated, and that we would continue to grow your kingdom through these chapters, Lord. And I just ask that your special anointing on each of the chapters and chapter leaders as they do this good work of discipleship and evangelization with young adults. Amen. Okay, so today is about building on what we've talked about the last couple months. Last few months have been about developing that leadership team, and how do we invest and invite people? How do we identify talent, identify needs, and then also recruit towards those needs? And so building, really, we're talking about phase one development right now, phase one development of a chapter of developing that leadership team, training that leadership team, meeting with that leadership team, and then building towards a disciples night. And today I want to focus on more about the disciples night and how do we lay the foundation for a really effective and a powerful and winning disciples night. So one of the backbones of the ID 916 chapter is that disciples night, a winning atmosphere where people can come into contact with the community and they're formed. And just as the name implies, it's a gathering of disciples, people who are striving to live for the Lord at various stages. Not everyone would be what we classify as an intentional disciple, but wherever they are on their walk, if they're trying to follow the Lord, the disciples night is for them. And so we're going to talk about some real practical stuff today, recognizing that there's still a lot more that we can talk about within the leadership team, and something that will definitely be part of future webinars is that ongoing training in the leadership team, keeping them inspired, keeping them clear in what their responsibilities are, and taking care of business, if you will. So with that in mind, I also want to take a step back and just remind all of us why we do a disciples night. Well, how does it fit into our grow and go model, right? So if you're looking at your grow and go diagram here, we're trying to grow in holiness. Remember, we've talked about this. We're trying to grow in holiness, and we're trying to go make disciples. And how does the disciples night fit in that? Well, it's one of those things that we facilitate that comes from as we initiate conversion, as we foster communion, as we embrace orthodoxy, and as we arouse mission. Those are keys. Those are pillars. That's what we're striving for. We want to then have something we can invest and invite people to. We talked about this last time, investing and inviting, spending time with people, getting to know them, and then discerning what it is that we can invite them to help them go deeper in this process, help them go deeper in growing and going. And so the disciples night is first on this list in this diagram because it's one of those fundamental parts of a chapter. And one of those things that, while it's in some ways very easy to do, can also be very difficult to do. In terms of, it's one of the easier things to do because it's in some ways it's a monthly event, right? We're putting on a monthly evening with mass, dinner, and the talk. And so in some ways it's very simple, but in other ways it's extremely difficult to make it life-giving and help it be a very powerful time of community, of growth together. So with that in mind, I want to also point out that we've really finalized, or we've constructed what we're calling our ID 916 chapter development guide. And this chapter development guide, if you haven't received it, please let me know because I can send it to you. The other thing is we're almost done with the section of the website. Well, actually, the bones of the website are in place for all of this stuff, including promotional materials and a lot of different things where you can download them. So one of the things we're going to be doing over the next several weeks is setting each one of the chapters up as a user that you can log in and get all this information in a downloadable form and then share it with whoever you need to in your chapter. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about today comes directly out of this chapter development guide, specifically the phase one portion of it. Because that's what the disciples night is. It's really firmly part of the phase one process. Not to say that once you're in a phase two, you're going to stop doing disciples nights, but it's the kind of the core tenet of what it means to be a phase one chapter with ID 916. So looking at that, phase one is about that leadership team and getting that disciples night. So as a quick review, most of you know what a disciples night is because you've been doing them. Otherwise, you wouldn't be even watching this webinar probably. But a disciples night is around three basic moments throughout the course of the evening. You have mass, you have dinner, and then you have talk. Okay. And ideally, that talk is being live streamed from Ann Arbor, but it also could be a live talk in the case of Our Lady of Counsel, or like Kate in Ohio, using some of the recorded talks. Same with our friends at St. Andrews. So let's break down each one of those sections and why they're important. Obviously, I don't think I have to go into too much of why Mass is important. The Eucharist is the source and summit of our faith. So we really feel like it's important that as a community, we rally around the central expression of our union and our worship to God in the Holy Eucharist. And one of our pillars, right, is communion. Well, the highest expression of that communion is Holy Communion, when the whole people of God come together to one table to eat of the one body of Christ. And that is a place that if we do Mass well, and what I mean by that is we really take it reverently. We have good music. We have song sheets. We have good flow. We have ushers. We have Eucharistic ministers. We have people serving the priest. The priest understands the environment, understands the audience, and is ready and willing to give a homily that's pointed to young adults. If all those things come together, it's amazing how much unity and power can come out of that celebration, that Eucharistic celebration together. When we first got started in Ann Arbor, I don't want to say Mass was an afterthought, because that's not accurate. But we were so concerned, we were so worried about making sure the speaker was on time and on topic, and we had food and the environment was set up, that sometimes we kind of neglected some of the finer points of the Mass. And what we found, though, is the more time we put into Mass, the more time we made sure that things were really in place, it sets the tone for the evening, especially if you're able to start with Mass. I know in Missouri they end with Mass, which is still very important as kind of a launch point. Mass is ended, go in peace, to love and serve the Lord. That's a big part of it too. But what we found is, as starting with Mass, people are coming from work. Maybe they dropped the kids off with the babysitter. Now they're ready. They want to engage in the Eucharist, and it's so important to have readers lined up, have the priest prep for what they're about to get into. Okay, you're talking to young adults, which means they should be energetic. They should be excited for this opportunity to preach and lead a group of people in their 20s and 30s through the celebration of Mass. Song sheets. If you're going to have music, make sure the music is good. Make sure the music is at least at a level where people can sing. It's very difficult to get people to sing in general. It's really hard to get them to sing if the music isn't very good. And so working with your musicians to sing songs that people know. One of the things that at the beginning we did a lot of was new songs and kind of fun songs, and songs that you kind of introducing new songs to the group. And while that's important, and we want to be able to foster a wide range of music and songs, what we found is that people had a hard time singing it because they didn't know the songs. And so what we started doing instead was just playing some of the same songs on a monthly basis. And yeah, it gets a little repetitive, but in a certain sense, you're only meeting once a month. So often people wouldn't even remember what the songs were before. And so by playing the same songs, people got to know the songs and got to love the songs, and were able to really sing. And there's nothing like a community that's worshiping the Lord together, especially after communion or a closing song, where people know the song and they're really diving in. And the people leading music are not just leading music and playing music, but they're leading worship. So I do want to stress the importance of taking the Mass very seriously, and taking it as planning it as if you plan the rest of the evening. Really looking, okay, who's in charge of the liturgical stuff, who's finding all the different roles, who's prepping the priest, and making sure that Mass is done really well. Okay. Second portion of the evening typically is the meal. And there's something, again, about breaking bread together. There's something very scriptural about that, right? Sitting down to a meal that is really important to building the community and building this atmosphere of love and acceptance and people getting known and really developing relationships together. From the moment Mass ends to walking through the line of getting their food, to finding a place to sit, to engaging in conversation, to having a drink together, kind of that whole process is in many ways the lasting impact of the Disciples' Night. I've had many people who've come to Disciples' Nights before who are in varying stages of their faith, who maybe even skipped the Mass part and only came for dinner and the talk, and maybe didn't even like the talk that much. or didn't fully agree with what the speaker was talking about. But the dinner part was so beneficial to them that they enjoyed it so much, of being with other people, having a face-to-face conversation, having real interaction with each other, that it left a good taste in their mouth when they left, and they could say, that was good. I'm glad I came. And that's a really important part of the Disciples' Night, is being able to foster an environment of good food, of good fellowship, of a relaxed atmosphere, a clean atmosphere where people can feel like I can relax and enjoy other people's company and have a good meal. With that in mind, as best as possible, to have decent food is great. And one of the things I encourage you is, maybe it's possible, maybe it's not, but to not always either have the same food, but definitely don't always do the kind of the pizza and pop route. That feels very much like a youth group type thing. Well, what are we having? We're having pizza and soda, right? Now, that's what you've had at every youth group ever. So trying to diversify a little bit, and I understand that budgets could be tight in different places, but looking for opportunities to find a local Catholic restaurant that wants to give some food or give it at a discounted rate, having some ladies in the parish cook, having some young adults in the parish cook, whatever it is, thinking creatively about this so that the food is a benefit to the evening, especially if you're charging. Now, I know not all the chapters are in the place where they're charging their young adults for it, but in Ann Arbor, it's $10 for the whole thing, mass, meal, and talk, and $5 if they're not eating, just for the mass and the talk. And so if you're in a place where you're charging, you really want to be able to provide a decent meal as part of it. Now, third portion of it, third major part of the evening, is the talk. And the talk accomplishes a few things. The talk, depending on what pillar it's focusing on, or the topic for the evening, it's really a place of helping us embrace the orthodoxy, that orthodoxy pillar, being able to speak the truth into whatever the topic is. I also think it's a powerful tool for initiating some conversion of our hearts. Can be converted by the transformation of your heart and mind. And so being able to hear the Word of God preached, being able to internalize it, and then depending on if there's question and answer or discussion, to be able to really chew on it a little bit, is a fundamental part of the way that we help people grow. We say we want to grow and go. Well, one of the major parts of what we provide to someone as a part of ID 916 in the growth department is the content they receive from the talks. Now, there's a lot of logistical stuff to make sure the talk is effective. And a lot of it has to do with our end, making sure we've got good speakers with good topics that are relevant to a wide swath of young adults. And of course, there's the technical side of it as well. So we're working every time to make sure that the broadcast is smooth and clean and pure as possible. And I think we've gotten a lot better at it. I think we can get a lot better at it. And one of the ways we know how to improve is the feedback you give us, is to say, that wasn't working, or this was really choppy, or the sound was awful, or that was great, it was smooth. What you need from your end are some very practical things. You need a strong internet connection. Okay, so ideally hardwire, but Wi-Fi can work. It's just amazing how tricky the internet can be, because if it cuts out for even just one little second, it'll mess up with the live stream. You'll want a projector, and the part that I always forget every time I try to project something is the sound. Hooking that up to speakers so that the whole room can hear it, and it's not just off of a laptop. You'll obviously need a screen and a projector and good lighting in the room so that people can see. It's just really important that we take this seriously, because if somebody's coming, they could have, mass was great, meal was great, but then if the talk's a bomb, especially if it's due to technical issues, they may give us the benefit of the doubt for a few times, but then they're going to stop coming, because it's just, what's the point if it's not good? And so that's where I really need good feedback from you to say, this is working, this isn't working, so that we can make sure that this live stream experience is as fruitful and solid as possible. Because in many ways, it's a foundational piece of the growth of a chapter. Is one of the unique things that we're able to provide is hopefully really home run quality speakers and topics each and every month, and that alleviates some of the pressure from all of you to find those speakers each month. Now, if you're in a situation where you are finding live speakers or using recorded talks, that's a slightly different situation. One thing I do want to encourage you to is, if there's a month where you really have a quality speaker kind of in the box that you'd love to use, well, let's talk about that, because there's some vetting that we would want to do to make sure there's good quality control for whoever you want to have speak. But at the same time, live speakers are great. And so if we can figure out opportunities for chapters to have live speakers, that's excellent. The other thing I want to encourage you to do is be scoping the young adult community for people who can give testimonies. Anywhere from 5 to 10-minute testimonies of what the Lord is doing in their life. And it doesn't have to be like a conversion story every time. Ideally, it'd be focused around whatever pillar it is for this month. And so taking the time before the talk, before the live stream starts, to have one of the local community members share what the Lord is doing in a very practical way. This is what God is doing in my life right now. I want to share with you, this is where he's brought me over the last several months, or this is how I came to know him, or this is how I came to be part of the community. Letting kind of organic relationships form from someone. There's something really cool about someone from the community speaking to the community about what the Lord is doing. It increases faith, it increases unity, and it just shows that the Holy Spirit is working. And that is an excellent way to get people more engaged and to hear from the local people about what God is doing. Okay, so those are the three big things. Now, I think there's an overriding concept. Water break. I think there's an overriding ideal that you and your team are really going to want to sink your teeth into when it comes to the Disciples' Night. And that is the really important understanding of hospitality. Okay, and having an atmosphere, a culture, even a civilization, if you will, a little civilization of the ID 916 of love and welcoming and a real sense of joy in building community, of investing in people's lives, getting to know people, and really just meeting people where they're at, loving them there, and then gently and willingly and looking for opportunities to call them to a deeper level. And that goes for all of us. And one of the things that can be tough after several months of meeting together is you start to see the same people and you start to develop relationships. That's not the tough part. The tough part is new people start to show up, still maintaining a joy that they're there and being willing to get to know them and invest and invite in them. Doesn't mean that you're going to be best friends with everybody who comes to a Disciples' Night. Not at all. But there should be a real intentionality, especially at the leadership team level, of everyone who comes through the door at a Disciples' Night is greeted, they're welcomed, and they are accepted in some way of kind of bringing them into the community. And so there's a lot of different ways this looks. This looks through having greeters at the door, or whoever's checking people in of being smiling and saying, welcome, is this your first time? How can, where are you from? Tell us about yourself, that type of thing. To once they've got their food, if they're kind of standing there, look around like, where do I go? Having people who are ready to say, oh, you need a place to sit here, Kim, let me introduce you to some people, and helping them sit down and begin a conversation. Or here, come sit with me. I'd love for you to join me. I'm going to introduce you to some of my friends here. Just having this environment where everybody is excited about meeting everybody and getting to know each other. Now, obviously, some personalities are more predisposed to this type of approach. The extroverts are totally pumped about this, and introverts are maybe not as pumped about this, which is fine, which is good, we need that whole scope. But there's still a way that everybody can value a really loving, hospitable environment. That everybody with their own uniques and their own roles, it doesn't matter necessarily what your role is on the evening. You may not be a greeter, but you can still foster a joyful community around you by being joyful, by welcoming people, by talking to people, by smiling at people, and just throughout the whole evening, from beginning to end, feeling like we are part of a community together, and I want to invest and get to know you, and I want to love you wherever you are. That will be kind of the lasting impression. The talk could hit a high note, and they could really get a lot out of it. The food could be awesome. The mass could be great. But 99% of the people that they leave are going to remember most specifically the interpersonal relationships and interactions they had with people. And all it takes, not to put too much pressure, but all it takes is one kind of negative remark, one dirty look, one kind of feeling like it's cliquish, and they're not going to want to come again. They're not going to want to be a part of what's happening if that's what we're feeling. And what we don't want to have happen is to develop any sort of reputation where it's like, oh yeah, the disciples night is great, but it's really not for me. Well, why is it not for you? Well, it's just a group of people. They already know each other, and I don't know anybody in the group. Like, that is not where we want to be, and it's a tough transition. I can remember for a long time here in Ann Arbor, that was a difficult thing, because so many of us who are on the leadership team have known each other for a very long time and have been working together for a long time. And so Disciples Night, it was an opportunity to catch up, and so you end up talking to the same people, or you end up kind of congregating in the back, even during the talk, and kind of just, oh yeah, let's catch up, that type of thing. When that really shouldn't be the vision. Because hopefully what's happening as the community is built at the Disciples Night and in other venues, relationships will spill over into other parts of life. So you'll be meeting people for dinner and coffee, and the service projects and different things as they develop. Small groups, discipleship groups, will be a case for people to go deeper and deeper with each other, whereas the Disciples Night isn't the only place you see everyone. Okay, so that's a really fundamental point of all of this, is valuing and protecting and working towards a very hospitable and loving environment at the Disciples Night. Okay, so as a little review, 3 major parts of the evening between Mass, dinner, and a talk, really taking and breaking down each one of those 3 things and saying, what are the roles and responsibilities, what are the tasks that need to be done. Part of that is accomplished in the chapter development guide, and we'll go over that in our next webinar. We'll go break down some of the specific roles more specifically to make sure it's clear what we're trying to accomplish with those roles. But again, framing it in the concept of the Disciples Night is a special opportunity that can look very much like an event, and it is an event, right? It's once a month event, but it should be part of a greater whole, a greater mission, a greater purpose that transcends just event-based ministry. That while it's important that we have our monthly gathering where we can gather more people in, we can cast vision, we can grow the community, we can have some formation, we can receive the Eucharist together. That's an essential part of this. But it should be seen as the first step, not the end step. Now, a chapter might be, I don't want to say stuck, be in the phase 1 Disciples Night mode for a while, as they build, as they cast vision, as they recruit people, as they grow the chapter. And that's totally great. There's no rush. But let's always keep in mind that discipleship requires more than a 3-hour meeting on a Thursday night. Discipleship requires more than just that once a month gathering. It really requires a daily commitment to it, but then also what we're able to provide from ID 916, the discipleship groups and the Alpha courses or the Christ Life or whatever it is, to help people be converted and to move into a deeper sense of community with each other as we all are discipled by Christ and by the church. And so the Disciples Night, let's nail it. Let's take great pride in having an excellent evening where people can really feel like, man, they've got their ducks in a row. They really are focused on making sure this is an excellent environment, and that the excellence comes from focusing on those little details, those little things of having name tags ready, having markers to sign the name tags, or getting the official ID 916 name tag so that they can feel like they're part of something, that when they show up, it's like, oh yeah, here's my name tag with my name on it. I've already got it ready. I can put it on and I'm ready to go. There's lots of different ways that we can hold up excellence in everything that we do, whether it's the MCs being very prepared with their announcements, Mass running smoothly and not that awkward moment like, wait, do we have a Eucharistic minister? Little things like that go a long way to helping people feel comfortable, relaxed, and to walk through the evening and receive what the Lord has for them. So as always, please send me your questions or comments or concerns. And one last thing I want to say before we sign off is please, 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 as chapter leaders, don't feel like you're imposing on us by asking us for help, for questions, for clarifications, for additional resources. This is why we exist, to support you to do this really important work of discipleship and evangelization. So you can't communicate with us too much. Just please, 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 please keep letting us know how things are going. This is what we're running into. This is where we're stagnating. This is where we're really taking off. What do you think? And we want to just continue to walk alongside you to help you with that. Because that's what we're about, right? We're about growing and going. We're about helping people grow in holiness, and so they can go out and make disciples as well. And the Disciples Night fits into that as that opportunity where we can invest and invite with people. All right, God bless you. Remember, go make disciples. Don't forget about that. Keep going. Keep inviting people. Keep striving, because this is really important. We can't stop now. The Lord is in this. The Lord is moving, and it's our job to just continue to say yes.